I used to think luxury could buy peace, that money could drown fear if it came wrapped in silk and champagne. I was wrong. It only teaches you how expensive safety really is. What's your comfort price? Tell me in the comments. What would you do for $1,000 a week? I was 22 when I met him, and like every bad decision in my life, it began with hunger. Not the kind you solve with food, but the kind that gnaws at your ribs when you're falling behind. Rent, tuition, phone bill, they came like waves and I was running out of shore. At night, the glow of my laptop was the only light in my small apartment. The hum of the fridge filled the silence. Outside, sirens echoed off wet streets. That's when I found the app, a place where mutual arrangements sounded harmless, professional even. Profiles of men in tailored suits, smiling beside yachts and glass towers. Their bios all promised the same thing: companionship, support, discretion. It felt like a business deal. And maybe that's what I wanted, a transaction that didn't ask for emotion. His name was Dorian Vale, 42, self-described investor, art collector, and lover of honest souls. His first message wasn't sleazy, it was careful. Your eyes look tired. You work too hard. Let me take care of that. Something about that line, too observant, too intimate, hooked me. He didn't ask for pictures. He didn't flirt. He just sent another message a few hours later. Dinner this Friday, the Holloway Hotel. You pick the time. The message came with a $500 transfer. No explanation, no request, just money. That should have been my warning. Friday came with a drizzle. The city looked washed out and new. I stood in front of the mirror wearing a dress I'd borrowed from my roommate. Black, simple, maybe too modest for someone like Dorian. At the restaurant, he was already waiting. He stood as I approached, tall, composed, dressed in a dark coat that looked too expensive for the room. And on his face, that mask, not a medical one, not cloth. It was porcelain, smooth and expressionless, with faint cracks around the mouth. My first thought was theater mask. My second was run, but he smiled behind it. At least I think he did. His voice was deep and steady. "You must be Harper." "Yes," I said, forcing a smile. "You're really wearing that?" "It helps me stay myself." The words hung between us. He never removed the mask. Not to eat, not to drink, not once. The waiter didn't flinch, as if it wasn't strange, as if this was normal here. He asked questions, not about my favorite color or hobbies, but about fear. "What's the first thing that ever truly scared you?" I laughed it off, but he waited, still silent, polite. So I told him, a memory of being lost in a mall as a child, the sound of my mother's voice fading into the noise. He nodded slowly. "Good. You remember how that sounded. Hold on to it." I wanted to leave then, but the mask, the calmness, made me curious. When the check came, he paid in cash, crisp bills folded perfectly. He didn't touch me, didn't even brush my hand. He just said, "You'll see me again." And I did. Every Saturday for 3 weeks. Always the same mask, always in public, always quiet questions that cut too deep. Where I grew up, who I trusted, what I would do if I ever felt truly safe. Each meeting ended with a deposit. Each deposit made it harder to walk away. But money isn't just currency, it's glue, the kind that sticks long after you want it gone. The first wrong note came one rainy night when he invited me to his home. He called it a sanctuary for people who understand. I told him I was busy. He said he already knew I wasn't. "There's a car outside. Take it. The driver knows where to go." I looked out the window, and there it was, a black SUV idling by the curb, headlights dim. My heart thudded. Still, I went. The road out of the city was long and dark. Rain streaked the windows. The driver never spoke. When the car stopped, the house appeared from the trees, huge, silent, lights faint behind drawn curtains. He stood waiting by the door, the same mask, the same stillness. Inside, the air smelled faintly of metal and roses. Too sweet, too clean. Every surface gleamed. Marble floors, antique furniture, mirrors that reflected only fragments. I thought I saw movement behind one of them, a shadow that didn't match ours. But when I turned, the hallway was empty. In the dining room, a single place was set. One glass, one plate. "You said you were tired of being unseen," Dorian said. "Tonight, you'll be seen." My voice cracked. "What does that mean?" He tilted his head, porcelain face catching the candlelight. "It means you've already agreed." I wanted to laugh, say no. But before I could, the walls shifted with sound. Faint footsteps above, a door closing somewhere far away. "Who else is here?" I whispered. He didn't answer. He just gestured toward the chair. I sat because standing felt impossible, because every instinct screamed while every muscle froze. He poured wine into the single glass, deep red, almost black. The smell was sharp, metallic. "A toast," he said, "to honesty." I stared at my reflection in the dark liquid, and for a heartbeat, I saw something that wasn't my face. Something smiling. When I looked up, he was gone. Only the mask remained resting on the table where he had sat, still warm inside. I ran, through the hall, out the front door, down the gravel path until the house was just a blur behind me. But halfway down the road, I heard it. A voice soft and too close. "You shouldn't have left the glass unfinished." The car door clicked open by itself. The engine started. The headlights flicked on one by one, like eyes waking. And through the windshield, I saw my reflection. But it wasn't me. It wore the mask. Some nights do not chase you. They wait where you left them, like a door you forgot to lock. That night waited with its engine on. Tell me something in the comments. Where are you listening from, and what time is it for you right now? The SUV idled like it had a mind of its own. Rain stitched the road. Trees leaned close enough to keep secrets. I stood in the headlights and watched the dashboard bloom to life. The clock set itself. The radio flickered through stations until it found a field of soft static, a quiet hiss that sounded a little too intentional. When I looked at the windshield, I saw my reflection in the glass, but not the face I carried. This version wore porcelain. It tilted its head when I did not move. I wanted to walk back toward the city, but the dark had weight. I reached for the rear door, and it unlatched an inch before I touched it. Leather seats, dry and warm. A small card lay on the middle cushion as if someone had set the table. "Welcome back." The driver was gone. The road behind me was empty. Puddles seamed with light. The invitation felt like a test I had already failed. I climbed in and closed the door. The locks gave a polite click. The cabin smell was faint roses and clean metal, the same mixture from the house. On the card was a second line in small print. "Follow the rules and you will be safe." I did not want to read more. I did anyway. Do not touch the mask. If a phone rings and the caller says they are me, do not answer. Never finish a glass that tastes like iron. Leave a mouthful. If you hear 3 slow taps at the door, count to 60 before you respond. If you see your own face where it should not be, look away and name your first fear out loud. Something inside me rose and tried to throw the card to the floor. Instead, I turned it over. On the back, a tiny hand-drawn symbol, 2 small circles and a longer oval, braided with a thin line of ink. It looked like a charm made of reed or twine. When I blinked, the ink seemed fresher, as if it had been put there a moment before I found it. The radio hiss softened. A voice seeped through the static, low and distant, like someone speaking from the other end of a tile corridor. "Harper, seatbelt." I did not move. The voice repeated the word, not a command, a suggestion in a tone people use with someone waking from a bad nap. I buckled the belt with fingers that did not feel like mine. The SUV rolled forward without a driver, as smooth as if a hand rested on the wheel. Gravel turned to wet asphalt. Rain fell steady. The forest thinned and returned, then thinned again. I tried the door. It stayed locked, but not in a panicked way. The lock light just sat there, calm and red. I told myself I could pull the belt free if I had to. I told myself the car was a shuttle, not a cage. The car did not argue. We turned down a lane I did not recognize and drifted beneath a high iron arch that carried the same small symbol, 2 small circles and 1 longer one. The gate opened without sound. The house appeared again, pale and patient behind the trees. The driveway held 1 more vehicle now, a small electric cart with a basket and a folded blanket. In the basket, a folded envelope with my name written in a careful hand. I got out, and rain touched the back of my neck, cold as a key. I kept my eyes off the windows. The envelope carried weight, but no bulk. Inside was a single sheet and a pressed sprig of rosemary. The ink had a faint shine. You left before you learned the room. You were right to leave. You were wrong to run. It did not feel like a threat. It read like a gentle correction. At the bottom, in smaller writing, try again. Keep your hands clean. Name 1 fear before you step over the threshold. I said it under my breath. Being lost. The word left like a fog, and I felt foolish and oddly steadied at the same time. The door opened before I reached it. Light pooled in the foyer the color of tea. The air held that same sweet metal scent, softened by something herbal now, maybe the rosemary. The mask from dinner was not on the table. A small chalk mark sat near the baseboard, a chalk circle that had been rubbed once by a thumb. The hallway mirror reflected the foyer, but did not catch me until I turned to it directly. For a blink, my reflection lagged a heartbeat behind the turn. "Harper," said a voice. Not his, not mine. A woman, gentle and tired, like a nurse on the quiet end of a double shift. I turned. A figure stood in the archway to the kitchen, late 40s, hair pinned back, apron clean, hands folded. She wore no mask. Her eyes were the ordinary kind that make you feel seen in a good way. "You came back," she said. "I am not sure I had a choice." That is how most arrivals begin. Her name was May. She said it as if it mattered little to her what I called her, which in a way made it easy to trust. She moved like someone who learned long ago which boards would creak and which would not. The kettle was already warm. She poured without hurrying. The kitchen clock ticked in a steady, small way that reminded me of my grandmother's house. "You work here?" I asked. "I keep the rooms in the order they prefer." Her smile touched only 1 corner of her mouth, and I remind guests which sounds are friendly, what sounds are not. Anything that knows your name before you say it. She slid the cup to me. "Drink this, not the other glasses." "There are other glasses. You will know them when you smell them. They try too hard to be wine." I thought of the deep red from earlier, the taste that had felt like a spoon touching a coin. I took a sip of her tea. Lemon and honey, simple and clean. My shoulders eased half an inch. A soft noise moved up the hall, like someone trying not to wake a light sleeper. I looked toward the sound. May watched my face rather than the door. 3 taps, she said. "Count to 60, then decide." The taps came. 1, 2, 3. Slow and courteous. I counted. The seconds stretched in a way that made my throat dry. 47 carried a small vibration in the floor. 51 tasted like the kettle had been left on. 60 arrived like fresh air. "Decide what?" I asked. "Whether to answer anyone at all." May wiped a ring of water from the counter with her thumb. "You can answer every tap and still never meet the person who knocks. This house is old. It repeats." I swallowed. Dorian said there were others. "Dorian says many things. He curated this place. The house keeps its own council. Curated. As if a room were an exhibit and a person could choose the labels. He prefers guests who understand arrangements. You understand arrangements. Her eyes did not ask for confession. The clock ticked. The rain softened to a hush that felt like fabric. I breathed. I want to leave, I said, but leaving feels like walking in a circle. That happens at first. May set the kettle back on a small iron trivet shaped like a fern. The trick is not to run. Running makes corners appear where hallways should be. What am I supposed to do? Follow simple things. She placed a small paper beside my cup. The same rules, written by a hand steadier than the card in the car. A new line had been added in neat script. Do not argue with reflections. They do not owe you accuracy. I saw something in the windshield, I said. You saw the room behind your face, May said. It borrows. It returns when you look away and name what you fear. Being lost? I said again, a little louder. It heard you, she replied, as if that settled one tiny part. Footsteps sounded on the stairs, not heavy, unhurried. I looked toward the hall. The air cooled a degree. May did not turn. If you stay, she said, you will be asked to walk a room without a light and tell it what it smells like. You will be asked to sit in a chair that has a mark and not remove it. You will be asked to hear something true about yourself from someone who does not wish you harm. What if I say no to all of that? You can. The doors will still open when they want. The footsteps paused on the landing. A second presence waited in the silence the way a page waits before the first word. I felt the image of the mask enter the room without moving the air. Is he here? I asked. He is upstairs, May said. Not waiting? Observing. He thinks waiting and observing are different. He is often wrong. A laugh tried to rise and could not find its shape. I let the tea warm my hands. Why the mask? I asked. May considered the kettle, as if it might answer first. Some people are not comfortable with their own faces, she said. He found a way to make a face that asked permission to be seen. He forgets that a mask also asks for permission to be removed. You talk about him like you care. May set a small dish of sugar down, grains like tiny stones in a tide pool. I care about rooms that go unused. I care about guests who gather their breath in the kitchen before walking where it is darker. She looked at me then, direct but not sharp. And I care about you leaving with your own voice. The last bit landed in me with a quiet weight, the kind that stays. She folded the paper rules and slipped them into my hand. You can leave now and never return, she said, or you can learn how not to be owned by a place that pays your bills. Lightning stitched light through the window like a photographer testing a flash. The hallway mirror caught that light and held it an instant longer than it should. Show me one rule, I said. May nodded toward the dining room. Finish the glass you left. But not all the way. Stop as though you remembered it was yours to stop. I did not want to go back into that room. The memory of the wine made my mouth taste like coins again. Still, I stepped to the threshold and breathed. The table waited exactly as I had abandoned it, candles sending a friendly little flame into the air. The glass sat where my hand had released it. Enough remained to stain a lip. I lifted it. The scent met me with softness now, as if rain had changed it. I touched it to my mouth and set it down before the last mouthful. The candle stood taller for a second, as if satisfied. A phone rang down the hall. A clear tone, modern and clean. My pocket stayed still. The sound came from a small office I had not noticed. The screen of the phone glowed with a name I knew. Dorian Rule 2 pressed against my ribs. Do not answer a voice that borrows his name. Heat rose in my cheeks. The ringing persisted in a calm rhythm that wanted to be reasonable. I let it sound out its patience. On the seventh ring, it stopped. The silence after had a soft pressure, like fingers on glass. Then the office light clicked off by itself. May stood halfway in the hall, a shadow of a smile in her eyes. "Now you can decide something real," she said. "What is real here? The part where you choose." The rain slowed to a sift. The house settled in a way old houses do when night gets comfortable. Somewhere upstairs, a door eased against a frame. No slam, just a gentle suggestion that it could close if asked. May walked me to the foot of the stairs. On the wall, 3 small reed charms hung from a nail, twin circles and an oval braided tight. She touched one with the back of her knuckle. "If you hear the 3 taps again," she said, "and the timing feels wrong, place this by the door and wait." "What does it do?" "It keeps the room honest." She paused. "Sometimes that is enough." I looked up the staircase. The landing held a soft glow, the color of a lamp behind linen. My name moved through the air in a whisper that could have been the house or could have been someone using my thoughts for practice. "Last rule," May said, and for the first time her voice carried a careful edge. "If he offers you a different mask, do not put it on, even to be polite." I touched the folded paper in my palm. It felt warmer than paper should be. "I came here because I needed money," I said. "Then learn the price of letting a stranger measure your silence," May said. "Pay only that." Another 3 taps came from the front door. Courteous, unhurried. I counted without looking at the clock. At 40, the chandelier glass sang once, a barely there ring. At 60, I breathed in and spoke the first fear again, clear this time, for the house and for myself. Being lost. The door did not open. The taps did not return. I lifted the reed charm from the nail and set it on the console near the lock. The plaited rings seemed to relax once they touched wood. Behind me, the staircase light brightened a fraction. A shape leaned against the banister. Not a full figure. A posture, familiar in the way a habit is familiar. Porcelain caught a line of lamp glow and showed the curve of a cheek, the hint of a mouth. "Harper," Dorian said from the landing, voice steady as ever. "Shall we begin properly this time?" I stepped onto the first stair. The rules warmed in my palm as if they could choose for me. Some houses do not keep secrets. They keep schedules. When the stairlight warmed, the night knew what came next. Tell me in the comments, where are you listening from, and which house rule would tempt you to break it? I stood at the foot of the stairs with the rules warming my palm. Dorian waited on the landing, still as a portrait that had learned to breathe. Porcelain caught a thin line of light. I could not see his eyes, yet I felt them. May stayed by the kitchen doorway, hands folded. "Choose," she said, no push in her tone. Only air, only space to decide. Thresholds do not shout. They hum. I stepped onto the first stair. The wood accepted my weight without a sound. The second step sighed the smallest hello. I climbed with the rules pressed to my skin, each sentence a small anchor. Do not touch the mask. Do not answer the voice that borrows his name. Leave a mouthful. Count to 60. Name a fear. Do not argue with reflections. Dorian turned at the landing and began to walk, unhurried. He did not ask if I would follow. He moved as if both answers were expected. The upstairs hall carried a calmer temperature. The air smelled like rosemary and clean linen. A small lamp glowed behind a paper screen. The shadows it made never quite matched the objects that cast them. Almost right, not wrong enough to scream. 3 doors stood along the hall, each trimmed with the same narrow molding, each with a reed charm pinned above the frame. 2 circles, 1 long oval. One door had a chalk circle near the floor, smudged once by a thumb. "Rules of the place," Dorian said, voice steady, almost gentle. "Every room prefers a courtesy." "Which room is yours?" I asked. "The house does not think of me as belonging," he said, as if that were a neutral fact. He stopped at the first door and set his gloved hand on the knob without turning it. This one listens to footfall. Enter without hurrying. I waited. He did not open it. The second door had a neat brass plate, no words, only the reed symbol engraved so fine it looked like thread. This one keeps mirrors that do not owe us anything. I wanted to look inside that one and also never see it. The end door sat a little away from the wall, as if someone had started to close it and changed their mind at the last inch. The air near it felt cooler. "What is behind that one?" I asked. "Quiet," he said, "and a chair with a mark. If you sit there, you will remember a thing you would rather misplace." He turned from it and looked at me, or the mask looked at me for him. "We will begin in the middle." He opened the door with the engraved plate and stood aside. "Ladies first," he said. I stepped through and the room accepted me the way a pool accepts a careful swimmer. Floorboards, a long rug, 3 mirrors, no two the same. A window framed dark branches and rain. No music, only clock and breath. The mirrors showed the room and me almost perfectly, then almost not. "Do not argue," the 6th rule whispered against my palm. Dorian did not cross the threshold. He leaned in the doorway with the patience of a teacher who enjoys waiting for a student to find the shape of the lesson. "Look," he said. I approached the first mirror, oval with a thin black frame. My face looked back, pale with the kind of tired that comes from holding too much still for too long. I raised my hand. The reflection matched me, then lagged a breath, then matched again. Not a trick of delay, a choice. I named the first fear again, out loud, clear. Being lost. The reflection warmed a fraction, like frost giving way to the glass below. The next mirror was rectangular with one corner flecked or chipped. The chip made a star. In its face, the room stretched too long. The door behind me seemed farther. Dorian looked taller by an inch his body did not earn. "Say the second fear," he said, voice mild, as if asking about biscuits. "I do not know the second one," I said. "You do," he said. "You might dislike the word for it." I thought of the way money had begun to choose for me. I thought of how easy it had been to let transfers stand where courage should stand. The word that rose was not elegant. "Obedience," I said, and it tasted like metal. The mirror softened. My throat did not. The third mirror had no frame at all, only clean glass set into the wall, flush with paint and plaster. The reflection in it wore the porcelain mask. My body was mine, my dress was mine, my hands were mine, my face was not. The mask tilted its head. The small crack near the mouth had grown. It curved like a learning smile. I did not argue. I named the fear a third time. Being lost. Then the second. Obedience. The mask nodded once, as if noting attendance. The crack eased. Behind the porcelain, I felt another room breathe. "Good," Dorian said. He entered now, careful steps, heel then toe, no squeak. "The house heard you. It prefers guests who admit small truths aloud." "Why draw me here?" I asked. "You could have kept dinners and envelopes." "I do not collect diners," he said. "I curate arrangements." "Money is a doorbell." You answered. "That is not a sin. You are allowed to be tired." It landed too easily, like a soft blanket over a trap. I stepped back from the glass. "Sit," he said, and gave the chair a small gesture. The chair looked ordinary. Wood, canvas seat, a faint thumbprint of wax on one arm, a mark, not a stain. I thought the marked chair was in the other room. "Chairs travel," he said, pleased with his own cleverness or simply naming another house habit. I sat. The mark met my forearm. Warmth went up into my skin and carried a memory with it. A childhood mall, the echo of my mother's voice folding into a crowd, a tired girl counting soft animals on a shelf to stay calm. The body remembers numbers when names fail. "Tell me what you hear," he said. "Air on the window," I said. "Cloth moving. Your shoes not moving at all. And the room behind your face?" I closed my eyes for a breath. I opened them to the frameless glass. The porcelain watched with a silence I recognized. It was the kind of silence that can feel like safety and can also feel like inspection. It wore his patience. It wore my hesitation. "It knows how I look when I agree to things I have not chosen," I said. A small flash crossed the room, not light, understanding. Dorian inclined his head. "You are quick," he said. "Quick is useful." May appeared in the doorway then, a gentle interruption. She carried a shallow wooden box with a reed charm laid across the lid. "Borrowed," she said, offering it to him. "Thank you," he said, and for a moment his voice softened in a human way. No polish, no theater. She set the box on a side table and met my eyes. A question sat there without words. "Are you inside the choice you want?" I could not answer even inside my own head. May left as quiet as she came. The house settled again. "Inside the box," Dorian said, not touching it, "is a courtesy for the next room. Before we go, tell me one thing that would make you feel less lost." "Someone who tells me when the floor changes," I said before I could tidy it. "That is what May does," he said. "She has an honest map." "You keep her here," I said. "The rooms keep who they prefer," he said, and did not smile to soften it. He slid the box toward me. "Open it." The lid lifted with a patient little sigh. Inside lay a second reed charm, finer than the ones on the nails. The braid was tighter. The twin circles nested, the long oval crossed them like a closed eye. A card sat beneath it, blank on one side, handwritten on the other in a careful hand that looked uncomfortably like mine. "Place this where you do not want to be seen." I looked up at him. "Did you write this?" "The house likes to borrow hands," he said. "Sometimes it returns the favor." A quiet set piece unfolded then, the kind of scene built from a single sense. Sound took the lead. We heard rain step down to mist. We heard the upstairs clock land on the hour with a small silver tone. We heard the faint static of a radio in another room, no station, only soft noise, like distant waves against tile. 3 slow taps came from the hall. I counted. At 30, the chair's canvas sighed. At 49, something brushed the baseboard, light as hair. At 60, the taps came again, polite, patient, present. "Do not answer," Dorian said. "Not yet." "Who is it?" "A guest who repeats," he said. "The house replays callers until someone changes the timing." "What do they want?" "Permission," he said. "Everyone does." He moved to the door and set the finer reed charm against the floorboard, a single inch from the threshold. The taps stopped as if a palm had covered a mouth. "See," he said. "Courtesy." A false ease settled for a moment. Warm light. A chair that knew how to hold a body. Even the mirrors seemed to lean back to give space. I let breath return to its regular length. "Walk," he said, and the ease began to thin. We crossed to the end door, the one that sat shy of closed. He handed me the wooden box. "Carry this. The chair inside prefers company." He opened the door and a pocket of air touched my face. Cool, dry, a hint of book glue. The room held a single shaded lamp, a small table, the chair with the mark on its arm. No mirrors here. Only one framed photo on the wall, turned to face the plaster. "Turn it around," he said. "Why?" "Because you think you want to know," he said, not unkind. I reached for the frame and paused. The rules warmed my palm again, as if reminding me that curiosity had a cost. I turned it slowly. The photo showed a dining table with one place set. The glass in the picture carried a dark liquid, almost black. The chair nearest the frame had the same wax thumbprint worn into its arm. A mask lay beside the napkin, tilted toward the camera. In the reflection of the glass, a face stared out. Mine. I did not argue with it. I spoke the fears like lines from a prayer. Being lost. Obedience. The reflection held steady, then softened. A partial revelation slid into place. Dorian had not brought me here to own me. Not exactly. He wanted to see what a person does when a house tempts them to disappear into roles that pay well and cost more. Your arrangement, I said. It is not about dinners. It is about where money sits in a person's spine, he said. You can tell a lot by how someone holds a rule. Tighten, the story did. The distance between door and hall sharpened. The lamp dimmed one shade. The radio static in the other room moved closer, like a tide that had learned how to walk. Soft pursuit announced itself. A footstep in the hall, not heavy, not hurrying. Another. A breathing that matched mine, then slipped half a beat ahead. May's voice came from the doorway behind us, calm and present. He wanders when you give too many pieces of yourself at once. Who? I asked. The one who repeats, she said. He is not hostile. He is attached to an hour he cannot finish. Can I help him? I asked. You can pick a kindness, she said. The house respects those. I placed the finer reed charm on the small table by the lamp and faced the door. If he knocks, I will not answer. I will count. I will name a fear. I will leave a mouthful in the glass. That is a lot of small refusals, May said. They make a person. The 3 taps came again, right on time. I counted aloud. I felt strange and steady as the numbers carried me through. At 60, I spoke clearly. Being lost, then softer. Obedience is not the same as care. The house listened. The air warmed 1 degree. Dorian watched me the way a curator watches a visitor who sees the painting that matters. Choice with kindness, he said. You might keep your voice after all. After what? I asked. After you understand what the mask wants, he said. He opened the wooden box again and lifted a second object I had not seen before. A narrow ribbon of cloth, pale, with a faint print of rosemary along its length. He held it out. Wear this, not the other thing, he said. It signals you to the rooms as a person who knows where her face ends. I took the ribbon. The fabric felt cool and clean. I tied it at my wrist. A small calm settled under the skin. Turn arrived with no sharpness, only a tilt. The chair sighed. The lamp brightened. The photo frame on the wall clicked. Not a sound frames should make. The picture inside had changed. The dining table now held 2 glasses. One was slightly less full than the other. In each surface, a different face stared back. Mine in one, Dorian's mask in the other. Between them, a third reflection threaded the line, faint as breath on glass. May. Rooms like honest triangles, she said, and her mouth lifted by a corner. I am tired, I said. The truth of it surprised me. Then we pause, May said. Downstairs I saved tea. She turned. We followed. The hall kept pace without shortening or growing. As we reached the landing, movement touched the edge of sight. The quiet pursuer stood by the front door, head bent as if listening for a word beneath the wood. No threat, only repetition. I placed the finer charm on the console where he could see it. The figure paused, then faded the way a memory backs into the next room. In the kitchen, the kettle sang one soft note. May poured. Steam rose in small threads. Dorian stood by the window. His reflection landed beside mine in the glass. For the smallest moment, I saw the porcelain set aside. Not the face beneath it. The space. A blank. No one can live inside for long. Tomorrow, he said, you will meet the room that speaks in radio. For tonight you will sleep where the hallway closet is closed. Why that rule? I asked. It keeps visitors from borrowing your dreams. he said. "The house is hospitable. It is also lonely." He left then, without ceremony. Footsteps up, the lamp glow dimming. The house made the small, contented sounds old houses make when night settles. May slid a folded card toward me. The rules again. A 7th line waited in her hand. "When the room shows you your face wearing anything that is not yours, say your name before sleep." She met my eyes. "Out loud," she said, "a name is a small lock." That night, in the guest room with the closet door shut, the window glass showed me a porcelain smile. I spoke my name into the dark and waited to hear which voice said it back. Some nights are mirrors. You breathe on them and your name fogs the glass, then fades, then returns from the wrong side. Say hi in the comments. Where are you? What time is it? And who is awake with you right now? I lay on the guest bed with the closet door shut. The rules rested on the nightstand like a small map. Outside, rain softened to a hush that sounded like fabric. Before sleep, I did what May wrote. I said my name once, clear and slow. The glass held the shape of my mouth, and then the porcelain smile layered over it, as if I were trying on a face from a shelf. "Harper," I said again. The second time came back to me a fraction late, lower in tone, like my name had to climb a step. I did not argue with the reflection. I put the ribbon round my wrist between the cool of the fabric and pulse. When sleep finally came, it settled like a careful hand. I woke at 3:03 to the sound of a radio from another room. No song, no voice, only tuned static that rose and fell as if the air itself were breathing. The closet door stayed closed. The hallway stayed calm. The rule held. A whisper shaped itself inside the static. Not words yet. A pattern. 3 quick flutters, a rest, then a longer drift. I counted without meaning to. 3, pause, 5. Schedule, May had said earlier, as if the house owned one. I closed my eyes and matched my breath to the drift. The whisper thinned. Sleep returned. Morning wore a clean temperature. Light from a high window drew a pale stripe across the floor. I smelled rosemary, lemon, and tea. May stood in the doorway with the soft patience of a baker waiting on bread. "Good morning," she said. The closet stayed shut. "I said my name," I answered. It felt small, and it helped. "Small helps," she said, smiling with one corner. "Come eat. Then the radio will want its turn." Downstairs, the kitchen felt like an anchor. Steam curled from the kettle. Toast cooled on a rack. Someone had cut an apple into thin rings and set them in a neat fan on a plate. "Does he always leave before breakfast?" I asked. "He does not eat where a mask is not welcome," May said. "He walks the upstairs until the rooms let him sit." I wanted to ask why he needed a mask at all. The question waited behind my tongue, like a polite guest who has brought nothing to the table and hopes no one minds. I ate an apple ring and kept the question for later. "When the radio speaks," May said, pouring, "answer without telling it anything you would not write on a postcard." That seems specific. "It keeps you inside your own edges," she said. "It also keeps the room from thinking it can collect your secrets." "Does the room listen?" "All of them listen," she said. "Some of them also repeat." She set a saucer near my hand. A reed charm sat there, smaller than the others, tied with a strand of pale thread. "Pocket-sized honesty," she said, "for your first visit." "What do I do with it?" "Place it near your ear when you do not trust what you are about to hear," May said. "It reminds you that you can leave while standing still." The radio room waited behind a narrow door off the hall, a door I had missed before. Paint, chalk mark near the floor, reed charm above the frame. The handle felt cooler than the others, not unfriendly, only fresh. Inside, shelves lined with small sets waited, old dials, polished wood, a modern box with a glassy face, a portable with a cracked antenna, a table model with a cloth grill that had survived decades. A coil of wire hung like a slow question from a hook. On one wall, a map with red pinheads dotted along a river. On the table, a single switch in the center, a black pebble among pale wood. Dorian leaned by the far window. The porcelain watched the glass. He did not turn when I entered. "May I?" I asked, hand above the switch. "Please," he said. The room breathed when I turned it. A soft rush found the floor. Static filled the space like mist filling a field. I heard the shape I had counted in the night. 3 flutters. Pause. 5. "Identify," Dorian said. "Pattern," I said. 3. "Rest." 5. "Good," he said. The tide of noise changed and moved inside my hearing like fabric pulled through a ring. Words began to find each other. Not clear at first. A name, not mine. Then another, not his. "Do you record anyone?" I asked, eyes on the dial. "The room keeps what it prefers," he said. "Does it keep consent?" "Consent is a door," he said. "Open, closed, or left ajar. The room repeats what once required that door and did not receive it." I felt anger rise and then find a shelf. The anger did not leave. It waited where I could reach it. Another shape in the sound. A 2-note whistle. Low, then lower, like a kettle that never quite reaches boil. It came at 10:14 on the room's clock. The whistle would become an echo. I could feel that truth settle in my bones. "Who else hears this?" I asked. "Guests," he said. "The ones who stay longer learn the minute and avoid it, or seek it, depending on the habit they feed." "What habit do I feed?" "You answer schedules," he said without heat, as if noting the weather. The static thinned. A voice reached across it like a hand under a sheet. "Harper." Everything in me pulled tight, then eased. The voice was my mother's on a day when she was not tired. It carried a lift I had not heard in years. I looked toward the shelf as if a face could climb out of cloth. "Postcard," May had said. I placed the tiny charm near my ear. The reed rings tingled against my skin. "Do not give it anything it did not already have," I said under my breath. "A rule inside a rule." "Harper," the voice said again. "Come home." "This is not a safe place to bring mothers," Dorian said. The porcelain looked toward me now. A reminder and a warning. I set both hands on the table edge and made my mouth work. "Home is a schedule too," I said aloud, words clear for the room. "Not a location." The voice cut, then returned smaller, like someone calling from a hallway with thick curtains. "Is this a test?" I asked. "It is an echo," Dorian said. "We make the content. The room holds the forms. What does it want? For you to pick a thing you will not do," he said. "Echoes cannot own what you have already refused." He watched my hands. He had a way of watching that made my body feel like a page and my choices like the writing. The radio gave me silence then, deliberate and attentive. It is strange to say silence can watch, but it did. I spoke quietly. "I will not give my name to a voice that did not earn it," I said. "I will not trade a face for a mask to pay a bill. I will not finish glasses that taste like coins." The coil of wire on the hook settled a fraction, as if the room had exhaled. I counted the small victory and did not celebrate it. Celebrating too early is another door, and I did not want to open that one. The 2-note whistle came again at 10:19. Same pitch, same faint scrape at the end. Echoes, schedule. The house loved a clock. We stood in the soft rush while the minute hand moved. Dorian let the quiet set piece be what it was. Sound, small movements of dust, the feel of a table edge under my fingers, the calm weight of the ribbon at my wrist. "What pulled you here?" I asked, my voice steady. "Rooms that make masks necessary," he said. "That is not an answer. It is the only one that keeps me honest," he said, still without heat. "Do you hurt people?" "No," he said. I make rooms ask hard questions. Sometimes the rooms hurt. That is a difference without comfort. That is why you have May, he said. I turned the dial a fraction. A new seam in the static opened. A man's voice pressed through. Not Dorian, not anyone I knew. A low cry, then a breath, then a single word. Permission. The word hit my throat and landed there like a pebble. I thought of the 3 taps, the patient timing, the figure at the door who repeated and repeated. I saw again the way the finer reed charms stopped the knock the night before. Can a house learn courtesy? I asked. It can be shown, Dorian said, and then it repeats the shape it learned until someone corrects the angle. How do I correct the angle? Bring a kindness that does not bend you, he said. May stood in the doorway now, eyes on my hands. She nodded at the small charm by my ear. Keep it there, she said softly. You are about to hear something tempting. The radio obliged. A voice I once loved and left drifted in with the hiss, clean as a winter sky. It spoke the exact words that would have invited me back 4 years ago. Apology, future promises, timing that would finally work. I leaned back so the charm could catch the edge of my hearing. The reed rings reminded me of their small, simple circles. No, I said, soft enough for the room, yet loud enough for myself. I do not answer a past that only exists to keep me still. The apology thinned, stretched, and snapped with a tiny, almost friendly pop. The needle on the main dial slid to rest. I cut the switch. The hush that followed felt earned. Good, Dorian said. You kept your edges. What happens if I fail it? I asked. Then you learn a new rule tomorrow, he said, not unkind. Do you ever take off the mask for this room? No, he said. The radios do not care what I look like. They only care if I consent to what they are trying to replay. He walked to the map and tilted his head. 2 more pins, he said, almost to himself. New arrivals? New echoes, he said. Not people. I watched his gloved hand hover above a stretch of red pins that traced a bend in the river. The arrangement here was not about luxury. It was about patterns and what people would sell to avoid seeing them. We left the radio quiet and returned to the hall. The air felt warmer by a degree. Rain had become a pale light that held the windows like soft paper. In the foyer, the front door waited with that polite patience the taps liked. I stepped closer. No knock yet. I placed the pocket charm on the console near the lock. Choice with kindness, I said. I can stand here and not open anything. May smiled by a corner. That is a kindness to yourself, she said. Different from the other kind, but still real. Dorian watched me watching the door. Tonight, he said, the house will try the closet trick again. If the door is open, sleep in the library. If it is closed, sleep where you can hear the radio through one wall only. Why? The library knows how to keep a face in one piece, he said. The radio knows your name now. It needs a wall. We moved back toward the kitchen. A small, familiar sound followed us, soft pursuit with no rush. The patient step of someone who believes schedules are safety. May poured more tea and folded another card. An 8th line rested under her steady hand. If a voice uses your first fear against you, answer with the second one, then count 5 and breathe. You will need this at 10:14 tonight, she said. What happens at 10:14? The kettle will miss its song, she said. The room will try to whistle for it. I gathered the rules and felt the paper warm like skin touched by a lamp. Outside, the light shifted, as if the day wanted to turn the corner but chose to wait. May, I said, why do you stay? She rinsed a cup and faced me without hurry. Because I like to watch a person keep their voice, she said. It doesn't happen often enough outside these walls. Am I doing that? You are learning, she said. Learning counts. We stood together in an easy quiet. The house did its small old house sounds. Somewhere upstairs, a chair moved by a fraction. The schedule turned a notch. I felt the tug of the radio room across the hall, not hostile, only curious. The pull was not mine. The house had begun to wonder what I would do. At 10:14, the kettle went still and the radio whistled for it. I lifted the charm to my ear and spoke a fear that did not feel small anymore. Some prisons hum like air conditioners. You live inside the hum so long you forget it's a sound. Tell me in the comments, what's one thing you once thought was kindness, but later realized was control? The night before blurred into morning before I realized I hadn't truly slept. I had counted instead. Breaths, floor creaks, the way the shadows leaned with each car that passed on the far road. At 10:14, the kettle missed its song, and the radio whistled for it. May had told me to answer with my second fear, obedience, and breathe for 5. I did. The whistle softened, as if it had gotten what it wanted, but the air afterward had weight, like I'd signed something invisible. Now sunlight pressed against the curtains. The house didn't breathe so much as measure. It seemed to know how long I looked at each door, how often I reached for the rules. Even the clock ticks felt aware, measured, counted. I went downstairs. May stood by the window, watering a small rosemary plant in a ceramic pot shaped like a bird. She looked up, smiled, and nodded toward the dining room. "He's waiting," she said. I hesitated. "How long has he been there?" "Long enough to notice that you haven't come yet," she said gently. "Breakfast helps. It keeps you on schedule." Schedules again. The house's favorite language. Dorian sat at the table, unmasked porcelain gleaming softly in the half-light. 2 plates. Toast, eggs, a bowl of cut fruit that looked too perfect to be real. He gestured to the chair across from him. "Sit. You'll need energy today." "For what?" "To remember what you agreed to." I stayed standing. I didn't agree to anything except dinner. "Ah," he said softly. "Then you've forgotten the nature of agreement. You accepted care. That's a kind of yes." He didn't sound angry. That was what made it worse. Anger is human. Control sounds like warmth. "I don't belong here," I said. "You do," he replied, "because you fit the rhythm. People who chase routine often mistake it for safety. You breathe easier when someone else sets the time." "I don't." He tilted his head. "Then why are you still here?" My mouth opened, then closed. I could have said money. I could have said fear. But the truth sat between the two. Quieter, smaller. Because leaving would mean starting over. And sometimes captivity feels easier than rebuilding. Dorian watched the thought travel across my face. He didn't gloat. He only nodded, as though confirming data. "The house finds those who can't stop counting," he said. "Bills. Calories, expectations. It invites them to count something new, something that looks like freedom." He picked up a small spoon and stirred his tea, though there was nothing in it. Each circle clinked softly against the cup's edge. Measured, predictable, safe, until it wasn't. "Do you want to leave?" he asked, tone so kind it almost sounded like permission. "Yes," I said. He smiled, though the mask didn't move. "Then finish your breakfast. You'll leave once you've eaten." It sounded simple. It wasn't. May entered, set a folded napkin by my hand, and met my eyes for the briefest second. A message lived there, not words, caution. I looked down. On the napkin's corner, embroidered in pale thread, were 2 circles and a long oval. The house's mark. My pulse picked up. I lifted the napkin. Underneath sat a small slip of paper. Her handwriting. "Don't finish anything." Not food, not conversation. I pressed my thumb over it until the words vanished into heat. Dorian folded his hands. "You've been very brave," he said. Most guests reach for the mask by now. You haven't. Because I don't want to. He smiled again. That's what everyone says at first. He stood and circled the table slowly. Not a predator, a curator inspecting art. He stopped behind me, close enough for me to feel the porcelain's cool reflection in my skin. When I found this place, he said, I thought I was rescuing it. Rooms, like people, grow wild without purpose. I gave it order. And in return, it keeps me visible, he said. That's what you don't understand, Harper. Visibility is a currency. The house sees me. It counts me. That means I exist. He moved closer, voice a whisper near my ear. You can exist too. All you have to do is stop wanting to leave. I turned to face him, pulse high but voice calm. That's not existing. That's disappearing politely. He blinked, porcelain still. A hairline crack glimmered across the mask's cheek, thin as a vein. You've been talking to May, he said quietly. Her kindness makes her dangerous. Maybe she's what's real here, I said. He exhaled through the mask, a sound like a sigh muffled by glass. Then he straightened. Eat, he said again. But the warmth was gone now, replaced by measured disappointment. It's bad manners to refuse hospitality. I lifted the fork and tasted one bite. Dry toast, no butter. The eggs were cold. The fruit, too sweet, syrupy, like something preserved, not fresh. He watched each motion as though taking notes. When I set the fork down, I saw it, my reflection in the silver tines. A face that was mine, but the eyes were his. Porcelain pupils in skin that looked like wax. I swallowed the bile that rose in my throat. Are you doing this? The house is, he said. It mirrors what it measures. You've given it patterns to study. It only wants to finish the equation. I'm not an equation. No, he said. You're the variable. The unpredictable part. That's why it keeps you. Then why keep me at all? He tilted his head. Because variables are interesting. May appeared again, calm as rain. She set down a teapot and poured slowly. The scent filled the room, rosemary and citrus. New blend, she said softly. Steadies the hands. She handed me the cup, then met my eyes. You can leave whenever you're done counting. The sentence struck like a bell. Clear, simple, with a meaning that unfolded after the sound. Dorian's posture tightened. That's not true, he said sharply. May smiled faintly. It's as true as anything else in this house. He turned toward her, the mask gleaming with an emotion it couldn't show. Do not speak in riddles. Riddles? She said. No, just math. She's almost balanced now. May looked at me again. Do you know what happens when the house finishes counting you? I shook my head. It stops needing you, she said softly. You fade from the mirrors, from photographs, from memory. Enough, Dorian said, but his voice cracked faintly on the word. May took a slow step back, leaving her calm behind like a small candlelight. When you're ready, she said to me, the back door is unlocked. But you must leave before the house reaches 0. What happens at 0? I asked. It keeps what's left. The room felt thinner then. Walls pulled close, floorboards creaked in unison. I glanced at the clock. Each tick sounded slower than the last, as if the house was savoring the count. Dorian's tone softened again, but it was a softer built from silk over metal. You don't have to listen to her, he said. She lives here. She can't imagine leaving. Neither can you, I said. He paused. Something behind the porcelain flickered, a tremor, an emotion too old to name. I tried, he said quietly. Once, but the silence outside felt unfinished. It's better to be counted than forgotten. I stood then. The chair groaned softly, as if warning me not to move too fast. I'd rather be forgotten, I said. He tilted his head as if cataloging the phrase. You don't mean that yet. You'll come back when you realize how lonely freedom is. Maybe, I said, but I'll decide when. He didn't stop me as I turned toward the back hallway, but every clock I passed started ticking faster, their hands twitching in sync. The air thrummed, the house counting faster, desperate not to reach zero. At the kitchen door, May stood waiting. She held out my folded rules and whispered, "Now you'll see if they work outside these walls." I stepped over the threshold. The air changed instantly. No scent of metal or rosemary. Only rain, soil, and distance. Behind me, the house sighed. A long exhale, not anger, not loss, just adjustment. I walked down the gravel drive until the gate came into view. The iron arch loomed above, its twin circles and long oval glinting in the gray morning. Behind me, the radio's two-note whistle rose faintly, softer than breath. 3 seconds later, it stopped. I reached the gate, pushed it open. The sound it made was not a creak, it was a tick. A single, final one. And for a heartbeat, I knew what zero felt like. Quiet, perfect, terrifying. When I looked back, the house wasn't there. Only a field of wet grass and a porcelain mask resting where the road began. You never really walk away from a place that learns your name. It walks a few steps behind you, matching your breath. Before we start, tell me in the comments. Do you believe memories can haunt rooms, or do rooms haunt memories? The first thing I noticed after leaving was the quiet. Not peace, quiet. The kind that feels polite, like a silence waiting its turn. The road was longer than it should have been. The rain had stopped, but the sky hadn't decided what to be yet. Blue bled into gray, and the air smelled like someone had just blown out a candle. I walked until the house was gone, or at least until I couldn't see it. That's the thing about certain places. Once they know how to hide, they don't have to move. I called a rideshare at the nearest gas station. The driver looked tired, the kind of tired that belongs to night shift workers and people who've stopped asking questions. He didn't speak, not until halfway through the ride, when the radio in his dashboard crackled softly. 3 short tones, a pause, then 5. I froze. "Bad reception," he said, tapping the dial. Static flickered, then settled into a faint hum that sounded too familiar. "Yeah," I said, "bad reception." Outside the window, the trees leaned in like they wanted to listen. Back home, my apartment felt both smaller and too bright. Every clock ticked half a beat off rhythm. The refrigerator hummed in a note I could almost recognize, not the sound itself, but the cadence. 3. Rest. 5. The rules May had given me were still folded in my pocket. I hadn't realized I'd kept them. The paper was warm, as if it remembered the house better than I did. I spread them out on my kitchen counter. 7 lines, written in a calm, practical hand, and an 8th in May's gentler one. But there was a 9th now. I hadn't written it. The ink was faint, almost blended into the paper's grain. When you think you've left, speak kindly to the air. It will decide if you're right. That night I tried to write about what happened, but words slid off the page. Every time I reached the phrase porcelain mask, my pen stalled, ink pooling into a dark dot, like the paper itself refused the word. I left the lights on and tried to sleep. At 10:14, my phone lit up. No sound, just light. A text from an unknown number. "You forgot your reflection." My throat closed. I deleted the message. But when I checked the mirror above my dresser, my reflection blinked a heartbeat late. I whispered, "Being lost." Then, obedience. The glass softened, almost approving. Then it caught up. Days passed. The world outside went on. Work, bills, the sound of the city refilling itself. But time moved wrong. I would look at the clock, see 3:08. Blink, and it would be 3:08 again. No missed seconds, no movement. like a video buffering. And sometimes, if I was quiet enough, I could hear faint steps from the hallway. Measured, polite, not hostile. Not yet. One morning, I found a small paper charm on my doorstep. Twin circles, long oval, a reed thread tied in the same braid May used. No note, no tape. Just placed neatly, like someone who knew the house rules was reminding me of them. I should have thrown it away. I didn't. Instead, I hung it above my apartment door, the way she'd shown me. And for the first time since I left, the air in the room relaxed. That night, I dreamed of the house. Not the rooms, not Dorian, just the counting. Tick, 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 then quiet. Then a breath in my ear. You left before you learned the last rule. I woke with my heart hammering. The window was open. Rain misted the curtains, though the forecast had promised clear skies. And on the glass, written in fog, were faint shapes. 2 circles, 1 long oval. It wasn't written by a hand. It was condensed, as though someone had breathed it there from the other side. For days, I heard it again, faint counting beneath the hum of the world. 3, pause, 5, sometimes a 6th, always followed by that breathless silence that asked a question it never said aloud. I tried to ground myself in routine. Morning coffee, laundry, noise. But even coffee tasted metallic now. Not bad, just wrong. Like the house had spoiled my sense of what was normal. Every kindness felt suspect. Every pattern felt alive. And worse, I started missing the quiet. One evening, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I nearly ignored it. But the message preview read, "Come home. The mirrors remember your face better than you do." I didn't reply. I didn't have to. A photo followed. My reflection sitting at Dorian's table. Mask beside the plate. My hands folded in my lap. And behind me, May smiling softly, like she'd known this was coming. The timestamp read tomorrow. That night, I unplugged every mirror in the apartment. Even the black screen of the TV looked dangerous. I turned it toward the wall. Still, the reflection followed. In windows, in spoons, in the shine of my phone when it locked. Not an image, a pattern. An echo of myself that hadn't stopped counting. At 10:14, the apartment lights flickered. The radio in the kitchen, one I didn't own, hummed to life. A low whistle drifted through the air. 2 notes, the same as the house. The rules on the counter lifted slightly, edges trembling like paper in a draft. I whispered the 8th rule. If a voice uses your first fear against you, answer with the second one. The whistle wavered. Then came a voice. Not Dorian, not May, something between the two. You carry us well. I left you. Leaving isn't distance. It's delay. I don't want this. You don't get to want anymore. You get to choose. That's different. The words came like air escaping a crack. Soft, almost tender. I reached for the reed charm above my door and pressed it between my palms. It pulsed once, warm, alive. The voice went quiet. The hum dimmed. The clock resumed its rhythm. But from that night on, every reflection, every single one, blinked when I didn't. I started keeping a journal. Small entries. Not about fear, about rules. Do not touch the mask. Do not answer the voice that borrows his name. Leave a mouthful. Count to 60. Name a fear. Do not argue with reflections. Say your name before sleep. Use the second fear. Speak kindly to the air. Each night, I add one more line at the bottom, written in my own hand. I don't remember when I started doing it. If the house remembers you, remember it back. Gently. Because forgetting would mean losing the last piece of who I was. And remembering, even the wrong parts, means I'm still mine. Tonight, I dreamed of Dorian standing outside my apartment window, porcelain cracked, empty eyes calm. When I woke, there was condensation on the glass, a single phrase written in fog. "You still owe the last breath." And for the first time, I understood what the house had been counting all along. Not time, not rules, me. They say if you spend too long in someone else's silence, it starts speaking in your voice. I used to think echoes were just sound. Now I know they can learn you. Before we begin, where are you listening from tonight, and what's the quietest sound in your room right now? The apartment started remembering me wrong. It began with handwriting, small things, notes I'd written to myself on the fridge: buy milk, pay bill, call mom. The ink shifted color overnight, from blue to the faint brown tint of May's pen, and the letters curled at the edges, the same looping calm that filled the rules. I told myself it was stress, that the mind plays tricks when it's tired. But the next morning, my neighbor, Mrs. Collins, knocked to ask if I'd been rearranging her hallway plants. "I saw you through the glass," she said. "You looked different. Like you were wearing white gloves." I wasn't. But I didn't argue. Rule 6 echoed in my head: do not argue with reflections. That day, I unplugged my television. Its black surface had begun showing the wrong clock. At work, time behaved normally until it didn't. My computer froze every afternoon at exactly 10:14. Emails I didn't remember sending appeared in my drafts folder. 2. Dorian Vale. Subject: schedule confirmed. Body: the glass is almost clear. I deleted them all, but they kept returning, like a draft that didn't need my permission. One evening I stayed late at the office. Only the vending machine hummed. The silence in the room began to organize itself. Tick, pause, tick. That familiar rhythm. 3, pause, 5. I pressed my palms against the desk, grounding myself in something solid. Fluorescent light flickered overhead, and then faintly from the phone on my desk, a voice. "Count with me, Harper." My body knew that tone before my brain did. Dorian's soft, calm, instructional. I pulled the cord from the wall. The voice stopped, but the static didn't. From somewhere behind the office partition came a second voice. Lower, feminine. "May, you don't have to answer him. Just finish the breath you owe." The lights dimmed, then steadied. The office clock hit 10:15. When I looked back at the phone, the screen read, "Call ended, duration 60 seconds, exactly 60. The count was complete. That night, I dreamed I was in my apartment kitchen, but the light over the counter was the house's chandelier. The refrigerator hummed in rhythm with a heartbeat that wasn't mine. Dorian stood by the window, mask cracked wider than before. He didn't speak. He only gestured toward the reflection in the glass. In it, May stood behind me, her face calm, her eyes hollow as candle flame. She whispered something I couldn't hear. When I woke, the sound continued, soft, steady breathing behind the closet door. The same one I always keep shut. Morning light felt thinner than usual. I sat at the kitchen table, drinking tea that tasted faintly metallic. On the counter sat the folded rules, 9 lines visible. A 10th line had appeared again. When the outside starts keeping your time, it's already inside. I tore the paper in half, but the writing bled through to my hands, ink like soot, warm from within. I scrubbed, but it didn't fade. And when I held my palms up, faint letters shimmered across the skin. 2 circles, 1 long oval, the house's mark, a knock at the door, 3 slow taps, measured, courteous. I counted, because that's what I do now. At 30, a voice spoke softly through the wood. "Harper, it's me." It was my manager, Anna. Her tone was casual, human, safe. "Hey, are you okay? You missed 2 days of work." I opened the door. Anna stood there, coat damp from rain, holding a grocery bag. Her eyes softened when she saw me. "You look exhausted. You need real food." She stepped inside without waiting for me to invite her. The air changed as soon as she crossed the threshold. The apartment noticed. The fridge hummed louder. The clock began to tick slightly faster. "Thanks," I said, forcing a smile. "I've just been sleeping badly." She unpacked soup, bread, tea, gestures of genuine care, the kind I used to recognize, but her reflection in the kitchen window didn't match her movements. It lagged like video buffering. I stared. Her reflected mouth moved slower than her real one. "You okay?" she asked. "Fine," I lied. She reached to touch my shoulder. Her hand passed through a streak of cold air so sharp she flinched. "What was that?" I didn't answer, because the answer was the house still counts. She frowned, uneasy. "Harper, you need rest. And maybe someone to talk to. You're pale." "I'm fine," I said again, too fast. Anna turned toward the door, hesitating. "Just don't stay alone too long, okay?" As she left, the clock ticked once, louder than before, then stopped. And from the silence came a voice, muffled but distinct, from the closet. "She shouldn't have touched the threshold." I stayed still. Even my breath felt counted. Then quietly, the closet door opened an inch. No wind, no movement, just space. Inside hung my old coat. Its pocket bulged. I reached in, expecting keys. Instead, I found a porcelain fragment. Smooth, white, warm. A curve from Dorian's mask. The cheekbone, hairline crack running through it like lightning. A note clung to it in May's handwriting. "You brought it back. Keep it until it finishes remembering you." I set it on the counter, heart steady but mind spiraling. Because when I looked at my reflection in its glossy surface, I didn't see fear. I saw calm. I saw order. That evening, I video called my mother. The call connected, but the screen stayed black. Then her voice came through, distant, hollow. "Sweetheart, you sound tired." "Mom, can you see me?" Pause. "Yes," she said softly. "But why are you sitting in the dark?" I looked around. The apartment lights were on. The glow of the monitor reflected faintly in the window. I opened my mouth to answer, but the voice that came through the speaker wasn't mine. It was Dorian's. Because silence photographs better. The call cut to static. I didn't sleep. The next morning, sunlight hit the porcelain fragment on the counter. For a second, I thought it was moving. When I leaned closer, I saw my own breath fogging its surface. The crack had widened overnight. Inside it, darkness. Not shadow, but depth, like looking down into a well. I whispered, "May, what do I do?" The paper rules lifted slightly on the counter, a breeze without source. The edges curled, and a new line surfaced, faint as smoke. When the reflection begins to care for you, leave the light on and do not answer your name. The bulb above flickered. I whispered my name anyway. The reflection smiled before I did. That night, someone knocked again. 3 slow taps. But this time, the voice on the other side wasn't Dorian's or May's. It was mine. "You can come out now." I counted to 60. Some nights don't arrive from outside. They step out of the glass you keep inside. Tell me in the comments, where are you listening from, and what do your mirrors reflect when the room is dark? 3 slow taps. A pause like a held breath. Then my own voice through the door. "You can come out now." I counted to 60. I stood still in the kitchen light and kept my mouth closed. Rule 11 waited on the counter, pale ink lifting from paper as if warmed by thought. Leave the light on and do not answer your name. The apartment hushed in a way that felt polite rather than empty. My name slid through the wood again, softer, like a friend at a hospital door. Harper. I looked at the porcelain fragment on the counter. The crack had widened a hair since morning, thin as a drawn thread. Inside the line, the depth held its calm. Not a void, a pause that owned itself. I counted to 60 in my head. At 40, the fridge changed pitch. At 53, a faint two-note whistle threaded up from the air vent. At 60, the taps did not return. "Speak kindly to the air," Rule 9 said. It felt foolish and necessary at once. "Thank you for checking," I said to the space just above the knob. "I am safe right now." The apartment released a fraction of tension. No sigh, no drama. Only a small, honest shift, like a shoulder settling against a chair. I set the reed charm back above the door frame. The twined rings steadied my hands in the way a smooth stone can. You touch it, and remember a measured shape the world cannot bargain with. The rules lay open where I had left them. I traced each line with a fingertip and felt the paper warm as though breath could live in fiber. A 10th line surfaced again, faint as graphite. When you are tempted to greet yourself, ask what she wants instead. "What do you want?" I asked the wood. Silence answered, then the smallest sound, a fingernail tapping the peephole glass. Not insistence, a question. "Show me where you will keep me," I said gently. The hall stayed quiet. My name did not return. A courtesy had been given back. I made tea, because making tea gives your hand something honest to do. Steam rose, clear and clean. I let the kettle sing its small song to the end this time. The note did not bend. When I carried the cup to the table, the porcelain fragment caught a line of light. Something faint moved inside the crack. Not a shape, only a suggestion of breath. I watched until it felt like I was the one being observed. "I will sit by the window," I told the room. "Sitting with your back to glass always feels like a decision." I faced the street and let the city do its steady work. Distant tires on wet pavement, someone laughing 3 floors below, a lift shutter somewhere in the building. Normal sounds, but now they fit inside the house's grammar. 3, rest, 5. I pressed the ribbon at my wrist and spoke my name under my breath. Once, plain. It settled the way a key settles in a lock you use every day. The phone lit. A message from Anna. "Darman said someone asked for your unit. Tall, quiet, left no name. You okay?" My reply typed itself first as fine, and then I erased the word and sent, "Trying to be. Thank you for asking. If you don't hear from me by noon tomorrow, check in." She sent a thumbs up and a heart. Human, bright, ordinary. The kind of kindness that doesn't count you. I read the rules again and set the paper across the porcelain fragment. Light dimmed under the thin sheet, as if the crack preferred a cover. Another tap. This one from the bathroom down the hall. Not the door, the mirror. I walked with the kind of calm you practice when you know panic will make rooms multiply. The bathroom smelled like soap and old water. The mirror above the sink showed a clean face lit by a ceiling bulb that had lived longer than it should. "Being lost," I said, not loudly. The glass did not argue, which was its kindness to me. I reached for the light and left it on. Rule 11 again. Then I tilted the mirror forward a fraction on its wire. Behind the glass, the wall was what walls are. Plywood, nail, a pencil mark from the person who had hung it last. No secrets, no breath. I let the mirror settle back and heard the gentle clink of frame against tile. "Where will you keep me?" I asked the reflection, because questions can be more protective than refusals. My face did not answer. Something else did. A damp circle formed near the top right corner of the glass, widened slowly, then drew out into 2 smaller rings. A long oval stretched beneath them, the house's small figure, breath made. On cue, the hallway clock clicked to 10:14. The apartment wanted the whistle. Nothing came. I waited, 10 seconds, 20. At 30, A radio in a neighbor's flat tried to find a station. Then quiet. In the quiet, a woman's voice, low, warm, working past tiredness. "You did not open," May said. I closed my eyes. "You sent the charm to my door." "I keep more than tea," she said, a smile in the sound. "The house learned your edges. It will test them softly before it tries new shapes." "What shape is this?" "The kind that asks you to parent yourself," she said. That voice at the door sounded like you, because it wanted to borrow your authority. "Will it knock again?" "Yes," she said. "But you taught it to count with you. That matters." "Dorian," I asked. "The upstairs keeps him busy when you are not there," she said mildly. "He believes curation and care are cousins. Rooms disagree." "Are you safe, May?" A small pause, a clock tick. I felt in my jaw rather than heard. "I keep rooms honest," she said at last. "Honesty and safety are not the same. I am fine enough." I let breath in, let it out slow. "What do I owe?" I asked. Not to the house, not to Dorian, but to the arrangement that had once fed me when I needed it. "Nothing," she said. "That is the gift and the trap. You owe nothing. The house will try to sell you a debt anyway." "And the last breath," I said. "What is it?" "Your name said back to you by the person you trust most," she said, spoken like a set of keys. "The house collects them because it likes to open people. Do not give that one away." I almost did. "You did not," she said. "You counted." Her voice thinned, then steadied. "Tomorrow at noon, do something ordinary in public. Eat at a window table. Pay cash, leave change. Watch people who are not waiting for you. Echoes dislike daylight that looks busy. And tonight, leave the bathroom light on. Put the fragment in a drawer. If the drawer opens, ask what it wants rather than closing it. Courtesy first, then limits." "Thank you." "You will be fine enough," she said, and the call closed without a click. I set the fragment in a kitchen drawer beside takeout menus and a pen that never writes. The rules lay on top, a thin blanket. The drawer slid in with a practical sound, not final, functional. I left the bathroom light on. The mirror kept its small breath mark for a minute longer, then cleared on its own. I slept on the couch. Beds make promises to the body the head cannot always keep. At 3:03, the building's pipes tried on a voice. I listened without naming it and let it pass. Morning brought an ordinary sun. I took May at her word and walked to a cafe with a broad window. Steam fogged the glass in a straight line above the espresso machine. People talked without whispering, the way people do when no room is collecting them. I ordered toast and jam. The plate came with a small butter knife that showed a version of my face in its hollow. I did not argue with it. "Cash," I told the barista, a man with a kind face and ink on his fingers. He smiled like money could be simple. I left coins on the saucer and watched a dog outside attempt to understand pigeons. Normal tries to feel like nothing. Today, it felt like balm. A shadow passed behind me. Not Dorian. Not May. A woman in her 30s carrying a heavy bag. She nodded at my table the way strangers do when tables are scarce. "Anyone sitting?" she asked. "No," I said. She set the bag down and exhaled through her teeth in relief. A student, perhaps, or a nurse off a long shift, or someone who keeps a lot inside. We did not talk. Silence sat between us without goals. After a while, she looked at my wrist. "The ribbon is pretty," she said. "Family thing?" "A reminder," I said, "to keep my face." She smiled at that and returned to her phone. The clock over the counter slid to 12 o'clock. No whistles, no taps. The room held, full of small lives that did not ask permission to be seen. When I stepped outside, the sky had decided on blue. Heat rose from pavement in thin threads. A bus gasped. Someone on a balcony watered plants. At my building's front door, A folded note waited, tucked neatly into the seam where wood meets frame. No envelope. A short message in a steady hand that was not May's and not mine. You left the fragment in a drawer. Good. You will bring it back when the window says it is safe. Until then, keep the lights honest. There was no signature, only a tiny printed figure at the bottom. 2 small circles, a long oval crossed by a faint line, like a needle remembering a seam. Inside, the apartment had kept its temperature. The bathroom light still glowed. The mirror showed nothing but a room. The drawer stayed shut without drama. I made tea again and sipped it by the window. For a moment, the glass doubled its reflection. Street behind, me ahead. My mouth moved a second before the person in the pane. Being lost, I said quietly. Obedience, I added, so the second fear could hear itself. My reflection caught up, then settled. The front door tapped once, not 3. The polite punctuation of someone deciding between arrival and departure. Come back later, I said kindly. We are counting daylight now. The air agreed in its small way. The reed charm gave a tiny twist that only hands feel. I opened the drawer and looked at the fragment without lifting it. The crack ran a bit deeper. No rush. A schedule doing what schedules do. What do you want? I asked it. The porcelain did not speak. The paper above it breathed a new line into view, faint, almost not there. 12. If you must return, bring a friend who thinks rituals are silly, and a person who counts for a living. Sit them at a window with you and let the room see that you have witnesses. I smiled to myself, a small tired thing that still knew how to lift. I have a friend, I told the room. She brings soup. She believes in receipts. The apartment seemed pleased. The clock ticked in a way that sounded like an ordinary house that owns a broom and forgets where the good scissors are. Night came late. I left the bathroom light on and read at the table with the ribbon touching my pulse. At 10:14, the kettle did not try to whistle. I let it rest. Midnight approached without theater. The door did not knock. The mirror did not fog. The city outside kept on with its soft, unnecessary miracles. A neighbor humming tunelessly, a taxi pulling to the curb with a sleepy cough, a little wind remembering how leaves work. I touched the ribbon and said my name once before sleep. Just before I drifted off, the window glass cooled against my cheek. My reflection leaned closer than I was. She whispered in my voice, calm and clear. Tomorrow, the house will ask you to choose who gets your echo. Some choices don't change what you see. They change who gets to keep the seeing. Tell me in the comments, where are you? What time is it? And if you had to leave one echo behind, what would it be? Morning arrived with a clean sky and a window that did not argue. I kept the bathroom light on as May taught me, and the drawer stayed closed around the porcelain fragment, like a hand that remembers its own strength. The rules lay on the table, 12 lines. The last one in faint ink about witnesses. Bring a friend who thinks rituals are silly, and a person who counts for a living. Sit them at a window with you. The house wanted a choice. My reflection had said so. Who gets my echo? I texted Anna first. She runs numbers and schedules without letting them own her. That counts as counting for a living. Then I messaged Jai, a classmate I sometimes see at the cafe, the kind of person who rolls his eyes at crystals and carries a pocket notebook full of jokes. Rituals never impressed him. Me, lunch at the window table? My place at noon? Anna, on my way at 12 sharp. Jai, I bring skepticism and a muffin. I placed the reed charm above the door and spoke to the air, gentle and ordinary. I'll be home by 10. Please keep the lights honest. The apartment settled like a cat entering a sunny spot. I carried the folded rules in my pocket and left the drawer shut. The ribbon touched my wrist. The city opened itself the way it does on a good day. Buses sighing, someone watering balcony plants, a shopkeeper sweeping grit into a small patient pile. At the cafe, the The big window was warm to the touch. I chose the table that had seen me yesterday. Neutral ground matters. Anna arrived with a ledger tucked beneath her arm and that practical concern in her eyes that never turns into pity. "Hi, stranger." "Hi." "You look steadier," she said. "Your text sounded deliberate." "I'm trying a new kind of honest." She smiled by a corner. "Good trend." Jai showed up 3 minutes later with a muffin bag and a grin that said he trusts bread more than people, which is a worldview that has kept many alive. "Window club," he said. "Do we get jackets?" "Only rules," I said, laying the folded sheet between the cups. He read the first lines and snorted. "If a voice borrows his name, do not answer." Very haunted etiquette. Anna skimmed slower, absorbing the shape rather than the sentences. "You've been writing these a while." "Longer than I knew." I kept my voice calm. I did not say house or Dorian or mask. I let the rules carry what I couldn't. We ordered soup and coffee. Steam fogged the glass in a soft band. The street breathed. Somewhere behind us, spoons sang against porcelain. I watched the window. I always do now. At 12:07, a faint breath mark formed near the corner. 2 circles, 1 long oval, the house's small figure, careful as a signature. Jai leaned close. "Condensation. See, science." He grinned. "Your ghost has lungs." Anna looked from the fog to my face. "What do you need us to do?" "Sit where the world can see," I said, "and tell me something true if the room tries to speak in my voice." "I can do that," she said. "I can heckle a spirit," Jai added. Equal opportunity heckling. The figure faded without theatrics. The cafe returned to itself. A child dropped a spoon and laughed at the clatter. A barista called a name that sounded like mine and wasn't. I exhaled. The moment felt small and somehow tall at once. Witnesses tilt rooms. We ate. We let silence be useful. When the check came, Anna reached for it and I shook my head. "Cash," I said, and placed bills on the saucer. The coins chimed in a way that told the house I had chosen this exchange. As we stood to leave, the window caught our reflections. Mine stood a fraction too still. Jai's reflection blinked at a different time than his body. Anna's reflection matched her exactly. "Okay," Jai said, peering at his double. "Creepy." Anna squeezed my hand. "You're not alone in this." We walked together through the noon brightness. Witnesses on the sidewalk have their own power. They carry their names without trying to sell them. At my building door, I paused. "Soup's on me when this ends," I said. "When?" Anna repeated, steady. "Not if." Jai saluted with the muffin bag and stepped backward into the street with dramatic care. "Text if your mirror tries to unionize." I watched them go until they became part of the city's hum. Then I climbed the stairs, each step a count that belonged to my lungs, not the house. Inside, the bathroom light still burned. The drawer stayed shut. The front door clicked a little when it closed, an honest sound. I like honest sounds now. At 2:12, the apartment cooled a degree, not weather, intention. I stood by the table and waited to see which schedule the room wanted to borrow. 3 slow taps sounded on the door, not at the knob this time, at the hinge. "Harper," said a voice that carried the weight of someone used to being obeyed. Not Dorian's tone, but he had taught it. Rule 2 warmed my palm. Do not answer the voice that borrows his name. This voice borrowed my certainty. Different theft, same rule. I counted to 60. At 38, the porcelain fragment in the drawer tapped the wood once, polite as a spoon against a cup. The taps stopped. The hinge relaxed. The air shifted to its ordinary shape. I spoke to the space above the threshold. "If you are here to collect a debt, I do not owe you. If you are here to offer a choice, I'm listening from the table." Silence. Then a small sound like a reed charm turning on a nail. I opened the drawer. The fragment sat where I left it. The crack had widened. Inside the line, I saw a hint of reflection that wasn't mine. Not a face, a posture. Someone who stands so quietly that rooms forget they're occupied. "May," I said. The paper warmed. New ink rose up. A soft line, more breath than script. "You will be asked to choose where your echo lives. Inside the mask, in the rules, or in a person who can carry you without owning you." "What does that mean?" I asked the paper. The apartment answered by turning its attention toward the window. Some responses do not need sound. I stood at the glass. The street went on, uninterested in me, and that felt like mercy. In the pain, 3 images formed as if I had dreamed them onto the surface. On the left, the porcelain mask, whole again, no crack. Its mouth a neutral line. If my echo lived there, I would be visible wherever the mask was carried. Counted, curated. A kind of immortality built from being watched. In the middle, the rules, handwritten, my voice pressed into paper. If my echo lived there, it would repeat in rooms that needed it. A practical ghost, survivable, respected, maybe lonely. On the right, Anna in the cafe window, brown hair tucked behind one ear, ledger open, eyes clear. If my echo lived there, it would be a human relay, risky, beautiful, free of curation, subject to time. "Choose," said the polite air in my kitchen. I held the ribbon at my wrist and felt my own pulse making a decision. The mask promised order, but its order costs voices. The rules promised usefulness, but usefulness can become a cage if you forget why you wrote any of it. A person promised tenderness and risk. People drop things. People also keep them warm. "Can I share it?" I asked. "Divide the echo." The window gave no answer. The reflection of the mask tilted once, a curator's refusal. The rules in the glass did not move. Anna blinked in perfect time with herself. "Being lost," I said to the 3 images. "The first fear belongs in the room whenever choice is near." "Obedience," I added, to answer the trick that tries to disguise itself as care. The mask dimmed. The rules steadied. Anna smiled at something off-screen, and it looked like relief. "I choose a person," I said softly but out loud so the house could count the words. "I choose someone who loves ledgers more than mirrors." My window accepted the decision the way a lake accepts a pebble. A small ring moved outward. The room drew breath and found a new rhythm. The drawer slid in by itself, no slam, only a quiet end to a movement. A message arrived on my phone from Anna. "Random, but I keep thinking about your ribbon. Send me the rule about saying your name before sleep. It might help my sister." I typed the line out slowly and added a thing May would approve of. "Say the name like a key, not like a question." Anna replied with a tiny sun. Witness acknowledged. The apartment's attention shifted toward the radio I do not own. At 3:03, a hum rose, then settled. I let it pass. Evening learned its shape. I made dinner with 2 lights on because 2 lights felt like good math. I ate at the table. I left a mouthful in the glass. I always do. At 9:40, the bathroom mirror fogged and cleared without symbols. At 10:14, the kettle stayed quiet. The radio did not whistle for it. Small winds wear plain clothes. Near midnight, the front door tapped once. A good night rather than a demand. I answered the air with kindness. "Sleep well," I said, because sometimes a house is a child that worries. The room eased. I turned the rules over to the blank side and wrote my own 13th line in my own slow hand. "Give your echo to someone who can disagree with you and still bring soup." I smiled at the sentence. It felt like something I could live with on mornings that do not want to be mornings. I checked the drawer one last time. The fragment lay quiet, the crack deeper, the inside dark and patient. I did not lift it, not tonight. When the lamp clicked off, the window held a faint shine that belonged to the city, not to any room that counts. I lay down on the couch with the ribbon against my pulse and said my name once, like placing a small stone on a path so I could find my way back. I am here, I said to the room, and so are you, and both can be true. The apartment accepted the sentence. Sleep came like someone dimming a lamp for your sake. At 2:22 a.m., the drawer slid open by an inch. In the porcelain's crack, a second glow appeared, not my reflection and not the mask. A pair of tired eyes that looked too kind to be Dorian's and too patient to be mine. Some faces keep their promises, others keep your breath. Tell me in the comments, where are you listening from, and who would you trust to say your name back to you? At 2:22 a.m., the drawer eased open. The porcelain fragment caught a line of streetlight. Inside the hairline split, a pair of eyes watched without blinking. They were tired eyes. Kind enough to be a warning, patient enough to be a request. Not Dorian. Not mine. The apartment held still in that careful way rooms do when a child is learning to walk. Pipes did not speak. The fridge held its hum at a level that felt like respect. "Who are you?" I asked. Breath fogged inside the crack. The fog shaped itself into two small rings and an oval, then cleared. May's way of nodding. "Are you hurt?" I said. The crack brightened a shade. Not yes, not no, present. I slid the chair close to the drawer and sat with both feet flat, ribbon against my pulse. "Tell me what you need." The drawer tipped 1 inch farther. The fragment did not move. The eyes did not look away. A soft sound came from the wood. 3 slow taps. "Count," I told myself. I reached 60 while breathing like I had learned to breathe in that house. At 40, the window cooled and warmed again. At 50, the bathroom light flickered once and steadied. At 60, the taps stopped and the eyes softened. "May," I said, "I am listening." The room answered with assent. Rosemary and clean linen, her field. "Do you want me to return?" I asked. Silence. Then the faintest scrape, porcelain against wood. Not an order, an allowance. "I will not go alone," I said. "I will bring witnesses. I will bring daylight." The crack dimmed to a calm dark. A small agreement. The fragment cooled under the paper. The drawer slid closed without a sound. I lay back on the couch with the ribbon tucked under my chin. Sleep came like a person who knows how to arrive without waking the house. Morning wore a clean temperature. I made tea and watched steam rise in straight lines. The rules lay where I had left them, all 13 in my hand, the last one about soup and disagreement in my own slow letters. A text from Anna waited on my phone. "Thinking of you. Lunch window again? I can bring my sister if you want external eyes." I typed, "Soon. I may need you later today. If I go somewhere, I want you nearby in a public place." She sent back, "Name it. I keep receipts." The porcelain stayed quiet in its drawer. The apartment felt like a friend trying not to ask too many questions. At 10, the intercom buzzed with a soft, almost courteous stutter. 3 short pulses. Pause. 2 more. I waited. The speaker held its breath. I pressed the button. "Hello?" "Good morning," said a voice I knew. Calm, low, polished. Dorian. My throat stayed even. "You cannot come up." "I am not asking to come up," he said. "I am at the lobby window. Daylight, as you prefer." A small pause. "You left something of mine on purpose." "The fragment," I said. "It looks back." "And forwards," he said. "May I speak without the house listening too closely?" "The house is everywhere near me now," I said. "You know that." "Then speak where it can hear," he said. "Rooms behave better when they are not left alone with their fantasies." It was a gentle line, I could feel the shape of care inside it and the shape of control underneath. "I will come down," I said. "You will keep 3 steps back. You will remove the mask." Silence. Then the smallest sound of breath. "As you wish," he said. I messaged Anna. "Lobby in 10. Please be near the glass. Count anything you want." She replied, "On my way. I like counting." I tied the ribbon firm and slipped the rules into my jacket pocket. The elevator carried me in a box of mirror steel that tried to think for me. I looked at my shoes instead. They told the truth. They were mine. The lobby smelled like old marble and new coffee. A guard flipped a magazine with slow, even fingers. Through the front window, the city moved with honest purposes. And there, set back from the glass, stood Dorian. He wore no mask. The face beneath looked younger than the voice. Jaw clean, eyes pale, mouth steady. Not handsome. Exact. He kept 3 steps back. His hands were visible, ungloved. He let me arrive before he spoke. "Thank you," he said. "You chose public light." "I chose witnesses," I said. "They make rooms behave." A small smile moved across his mouth and then left. "You think I am a room?" he said. "You curated one," I said. "You used it like a face." He considered that. "The house does what it was built to do," he said. "It keeps names. It measures breath. It returns patterns." "And you do what you trained yourself to do," I said. "You call control a kindness and pretend the cost is a tip." No heat rose between us. He did not reach for performance. The lobby did not shrink. "You left before the arrangement completed," he said. "I am here to end it cleanly." "Define clean," I said. "No debts, no balances, no obligations," he said. "No schedule that expects you." "And the mask," I said. "It should not hold echoes that are not yours." "It does not," he said, a shade quick. I tilted my head. "Then why are people's names caught in your rooms?" "Rooms collect what repeats," he said. "I am not the room." "Then you will not mind if I bring daylight into yours," I said. Anna lifted a hand from a window seat on the far side of the lobby. Ledger open, eyes steady. She did not wave like a friend at a cafe. She watched like a person who has paperwork ready. Dorian followed my glance. "Your counter," he said, with the faintest curl at the corner of his mouth. "A woman with a ledger. That is an answer I respect." "Good," I said. "Here is another. If I return to the house, you do not speak my name. May does, or I do. You listen." He looked past me at the revolving door, watched people who did not know they were keeping us safe. "You like rules," he said. "We have that in common." "I like boundaries," I said. "You like choreography." "Is there a difference?" "Choreography expects a bow," I said. "Boundaries expect breath." He smiled, small and tired. "May has been teaching you to phrase knives like lullabies." "May has been teaching me to stay a person," I said. He looked at the glass, not at his reflection. "The fragment opened at 2:22, he said, as if reporting weather. "That is when the house tries to borrow eyes. It will keep trying until you bring them home." "They are not yours to borrow," I said. "They are not mine to return," he said. "That is yours." I felt something tip inside my chest and land without breaking. Helplessness does not always rush in with noise. Sometimes it arrives as a clear instruction. "What happens if I refuse?" I said. "The house will look for other windows," he said. "It likes yours best, because you give it the clean kind of no. It will settle for others if it must." "People," I said. "People," he said. We stood in the quiet lobby while the city wrote its lines outside. He kept 3 steps back. I kept my voice even. "Come with me," I said. "Unmasked. May between us. Noon light. I will carry the fragment. We end the arrangement in front of the rules." He nodded once, no drama. Today, I said. I want the house to see my witnesses in daylight. His eyes did a thing I could not name. Not pain, not relief. Recognition, perhaps. You will choose a room, he said. The one that speaks in radio, or the one with the marked chair. Radio, I said. It knows my breath. He smiled again, smaller. It does. Anna stood and walked toward us at a pace that said she was neither hurrying nor wandering. Everything good? She asked, voice clear, eyes moving once across his hands and returning to me. This is Dorian, I said. He is nothing without rooms. Dorian inclined his head to her. Numbers, he said. The finest courtesy. She nodded back without giving an inch. I keep clocks honest, she said. We agreed on a time, 2 hours. Anna would sit by the house's front gate with a coffee and a view of the lane. She would message if anything bent the light. I returned upstairs and opened the drawer. The fragment waited, the crack a little deeper. The eyes inside looked like someone who had stayed up to make sure you arrived. I will carry you in a cloth, I said. No pocket, no palm. You deserve air. I wrapped the porcelain in a clean dish towel and placed it in a paper bag from the cafe. Ordinary bags have a talent for hiding extraordinary things. Before leaving, I wrote one sentence on the back of the rules. I will return what tries to live in me if it was never mine to keep. The phrase steadied me the way a good railing steadies a stair. On the bus, the city gave me its familiar music. Coins, doors, a child explaining clouds to a patient grandmother. I let that music set the rhythm of my breath. I did not count. I let the world count me instead. At the lane, the iron arch waited with its 2 rings and long oval. The gate opened without complaint. Anna took her seat by the fence with a coffee and a notebook. She pointed at the sun with her pen. Daylight kept time. I walked the gravel with the bag close to my ribs. The front door stood at its polite inch, neither open nor shut. May met me in the foyer with hands clean and eyes that made room for mine. You are on time, she said. That was the point, I said. Let me see, she said. I unwrapped the fragment. She did not touch it. She breathed near the crack, and the eyes inside warmed like a stove waking. Radio room, she said. It learned you fastest. Dorian waited by that door. No mask. His face looked more like a person than it had in the lobby. He stepped aside and let May lead. The room accepted us the way a sensible pool accepts weather. Dials, a map, the central switch like a black button in pale wood. Place it by the dial, May said. I did. The porcelain lay on the table with the crack facing the speaker cloth. Speak as if you are naming someone lost at a store, May said. Calm, clear, kind. I set my palm near the fragment without touching. May, I said, you who sent tea when doors shook, you who keep rooms honest. Come out of the edge. You have eyes on this side. The radio exhaled static. No whistle yet. The porch clock found the hour and let it sit. Again, she said. I said my name once, then hers, so the room heard the order. Harper, I said. May. The 2-note whistle came, then softened. The fragment warmed under the paper towel. Last breath, May said. Do not give it away. Give it back. I thought of all the times I had answered when the house called me by my name as if it owned the word. I pictured Anna by the fence. I pictured the ribbon at my wrist. I pictured the first time I left a mouthful in a glass and felt like I had kept something that belonged to me. I leaned close to the crack and spoke the name I would trust to hand me a key in a storm. May, I said once, the way you place a stone beside a path. This belongs to you. The radio answered with a sound like a coat settling on a hook. No drama. A placement. Inside the crack, the eyes blinked. The darkness changed shape. Not gone. Not trapped. Returned. The fragment cooled. The crack held like a healed scar, holds the story without asking for more. Dorian watched from his 3 steps back. He looked at the radios the way a person looks at a river that has learned a new bend overnight. "It is done," May said, and the temperature of the room agreed. I breathed and felt the helium of helplessness release. Not power, balance. We walked to the foyer. The front door stood open to daylight by the polite inch it preferred. Anna lifted her pen and gave me a small check mark in the air. "You kept your echo," May said, hand light at my elbow. "I shared it," I said, "with a person who brings soup." Her mouth tilted. "Good math." Dorian took a small step closer and stopped where we had agreed. "You will sleep," he said. "The house has less of you now. It will mind its own schedules for a while." "And you," I said. He looked toward the stairs. "I will attempt a day without a mask," he said. "I will likely fail by evening. That is also a schedule." "You can count a different thing," I said. He lifted one shoulder. "We will see." When I turned to leave, the window glass in the foyer caught my face cleanly for the first time. Then, in the reflection behind me, the mask rested where the console table began, whole again, mouth calm. And for the first time, it did not look at me. It looked past me, toward the street, as if waiting for someone else. Some houses do not need owners. They need someone who can hold a silence without filling it. Tell me in the comments, what's one boundary you're proud of keeping this week? The foyer window kept my face clean for the first time. Behind me, the mask rested on the console, whole again, mouth calm, eyes turned not toward me but toward the lane. Waiting. May touched my sleeve. "Walk once through the downstairs," she said, "not to prove anything. To say goodbye to the parts you do not carry." We moved through rooms that had learned me. Dining table, one place set. Hall mirror that once lagged by a breath. Radio room with its patient switch. None of them argued. The house listened the way a good teacher listens at the end of a term. "Do you know what it wanted from me?" I asked. May folded a cloth slowly, corners true. "To see whether money could make a rule feel like a promise," she said. "It cannot. Money is loud. Rules are quiet. Promises live in the middle." What did it want from Dorian? Order that did not ask questions, she said. He is learning that order and care are neighbors, not twins. "And you?" She smiled by a corner. "To keep tea warm and thresholds honest," she said. "Rooms like small jobs done well." A soft footfall sounded on the stairs. Measured, not a summons. Dorian stood at the landing, no mask. 3 steps back from us, the distance we agreed. "Thank you for coming when it was light," he said. "Thank you for staying where you are," I said. He looked toward the front door, then back. "I have spent years thinking I built the house I needed," he said. "It turns out I found one that needed me to stop pretending." May poured tea. 3 cups. She sat at the kitchen table without asking whether we would sit as well. The house favored schedules. This felt like one worth keeping. We drank. I left a mouthful. Some habits protect better than locks. "The fragment," Dorian said. "It kept its scar." "That is what scars do," I said. "They carry the story without asking for more." He nodded, eyes on the steam. "The radio will want to hear you once before you go," he said. "It will test whether you keep breathing for yourself." "I can do that," I said. May stood and set a reed charm on the table, the finer braid. "For the door if you need it," she said. "Rituals are tools. Tools should be visible." We walked to the radio room. Light through a high window cut one clean stripe across the floor. Dials, map, the central switch waiting like a patient pulse. I turned it. Static rose. Not a hiss now, a field. My name tried to form inside it. I let the sound be air instead of hook. "Being lost," I said, clear and calm. The static softened. "Obedience," I said. The tone leveled. My breath matched a rhythm that belonged to me. The two-note whistle came and dissolved. The room accepted the count I brought rather than selling me its own. Dorian listened. May watched the soft movements of dust the way some people watch violin bows. "It knows you are leaving," he said. "I am not leaving everything," I said. "I am taking what I wrote." He tilted his head. "The rules." "My voice," I said. We closed the switch. Silence returned, not empty, only unfurnished. In the hall, the mask remained where it had sat, calm mouth, eyes on the lane. Dorian looked at it without touching. "It will look for a new face," he said. "That is the work it understands." "Then teach it to look for a light instead," May said. "Light does not pretend to be a person." "I will try," he said, and he sounded like he meant it. I felt a tug toward the front door, not from the house, from the sky beyond it. Daylight has a pull when you have been counted at night. "Before you go," May said, "there is something I did not say in the kitchen." She faced the mirror by the foyer, the one that once lagged. It held us in ordinary time now. "When you first arrived, you wanted money to feel like safety," she said. "It is allowed to need. It is allowed to ask. Remember that asking is not a debt." "I keep forgetting," I said. "Then write it where you can see it," she said. "On the back of your hand. On your door. On the first page of whatever comes next." Dorian glanced toward the landing. "The upstairs will always keep a room ready for people who want to be finished," he said. "We will try to keep the door harder to find." "Good," I said. "Let them leave by a window that belongs to them." We stood with that for a moment. 3 people and a house that had learned how to count without devouring. I placed my palm near the mask without touching. "Look at the street," I told it, "not at people. Learn weather. Learn dogs that bark at pigeons. Learn children who kick stones to see if they bounce. There are schedules that do not require faces." The mask seemed to turn a fraction toward the glass. Maybe that was my hope arranging light. Maybe the house heard me. At the door, I set the finer reed charm on the console rather than taking it. May noticed. "Leaving a tool where the room can see it," she said. "Good math. For whoever needs it after me," I said. "Or for nobody," she said. "Empty hooks teach restraint." I stepped onto the gravel. Air met my skin with an honesty that belonged to trees and not to rooms. Anna lifted her pen again. The signal we had decided meant, "We are still in daylight." I turned back once. May stood in the doorway, apron clean, hair pinned. Dorian remained 3 steps behind her, unmasked, an ordinary man inside a complicated habit. "Goodbye," I said. "Until you need to borrow a kettle," May said. "Or until the house learns a new trick worth sharing," Dorian added, almost smiling. I walked to the gate. The iron arch held its twin circles and long oval. I pressed my fingers against the cold metal and spoke kindly to the air. "Please keep your schedules gentle." The gate opened without a sound. The lane held. Anna fell into step beside me, coffee in one hand, notebook in the other. She did not ask for details. Witnesses know when not to tug on a seam. "You kept your voice," she said, simple and true. "I am still keeping it," I said. We reached the bus stop. A child explained clouds to a patient grandmother. Coins chimed. A driver waved at a cyclist with the kind of friendliness that makes cities bearable. At home, my apartment greeted me like a room that has learned what not to measure. The bathroom light sat where I left it. The mirror reflected without borrowing. The drawer stayed closed. I unfolded the rules and copied them into a plain notebook with lined pages. My hand was my own. Blue ink stayed blue. After line 13, I wrote a 14th in clean letters I could read, even if a knight tried to steal them. If you keep a house, keep it the way you keep a garden. Water, light, open paths, tools return to hooks. Doors that can say no without needing to explain why. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number appeared and did not hide its honesty. "This is May. Dorian will teach the door to refuse anyone who speaks a name like a key they did not earn. If the house forgets, remind it that it liked your daylight." I replied, "I will keep my lights honest. If you need tea, our window table knows us." 3 dots. Then, "I like windows that remember steam." I set the phone down and let quiet take its place. Not silence as a leash, silence as a room sitting with you, without asking to be fed. By evening, the sky softened to a color the city wears when it forgives itself for being loud. I opened the drawer and looked at the porcelain one last time. The crack held steady. No eyes watched from within, only depth that had returned to being depth. "Thank you," I said, "for not pretending to be a face." I wrapped it in the towel and placed it at the back of the drawer behind the takeout menus. Then I wrote a sticky note for my future self and stuck it to the inside rail. "If this calls to you, open the window and read the rules aloud. If it stays quiet, let it rest. Not every echo requires an answer." At 10:14, the kettle did not miss its song. The radio in a neighbor's flat settled on a cheerful talk show that had nothing to do with me. I turned on 2 lamps and ate a simple dinner, leaving a mouthful in the glass because it feels like respect. Near midnight, I stood by the window and looked at the city becoming its gentler self. In the glass, my reflection blinked at the same time I did. No lag, no borrowed breath. I thought of the mask looking past me at the street, of Dorian standing 3 steps back without needing to be told, of May's text, tea and thresholds bundled in 12 words. There are ways to keep houses that do not swallow people. There are ways to keep people that do not require houses. I turned away from the glass and spoke my name once for the room, the way May taught me, not to prove anything, to keep the key where it belongs. "I am here," I said. "You are here. We can be kind from separate chairs." The apartment agreed with a small, honest sound as pipes settled. I lay down on the couch and closed my eyes. Sleep began to arrive. Then the hallway light warmed by itself, soft, respectful. A shadow crossed the door. 3 taps, not the house's rhythm, a different patience. "Who is there?" I asked, voice even. A boy's voice answered, no older than 15, careful around the words the way people are when they practice being brave. "Please," he said, "I found a place that pays for company. They are kind, they follow rules. I think I recognize the mask." My heart lifted and settled without hurry, not fear, a map unfolding. I set the ribbon at my wrist and reached for the rules. When I opened the door, the boy stood in the hall with a folded paper charm in his hand, twin circles and a long oval, and the exact look of someone who needs a garden more than a contract. Not every haunting wants to hurt you. Some just want to know if you'll leave the door open a little longer. Tell me in the comments. When was the last time you forgave a place? The boy stood in the hallway, rain still in his hair, holding a folded paper charm between careful fingers. 2 small rings, 1 long oval. He looked at me the way people look at maps they're not sure they're allowed to read. "They said it's polite," he whispered. "They said the house likes quiet." I took the charm and felt the reeds still damp from his run. "You did well bringing this to a door with light behind it," I said. "Tell me what they promised." "A room," he said. "Work, food, rules." Of course it was rules. The house had learned a language people trust. "Come inside," I said. "We'll keep the light honest while we talk." He hesitated. "I don't want to bother you." "You're not," I said, and I meant it. It's strange how safety sounds when you say it aloud after learning its price. He sat at the kitchen table, hands in his lap. The ribbon at my wrist brushed the paper charm as I set it down. "Do you know the name of the person who gave you this?" He shook his head. He wore gloves, said to follow the counting. My stomach tightened, not from fear but recognition. The house had found new listeners. Echoes prefer fresh lungs. Listen, I said. There's a place that pays better than promises. It's called daylight. You earn it by keeping your own name. He frowned. What does that mean? It means when someone offers you rules before they learn your favorite color, you leave. He smiled a little, unsure if it was a joke. It wasn't, and it was. I made tea. The kettle hummed its small song and didn't skip a beat. He watched the steam as though it might spell something. Did the man give you a number to call? I asked. He nodded and slid a scrap of paper across the table. Familiar handwriting, clean, curated. Not Dorian's anymore, the house's. The message read, "Count to 60 before answering kindness." I tore it neatly and dropped the pieces into the sink. They're not evil, I said, just unfinished. Like a story that forgot how to end. What do I do now? You start different rules. I opened my notebook, the one where the old list lived, and turned to a blank page. He leaned close, curiosity steadying him. Rule 1, I said, writing slowly so he could see each word. If a room says it can love you, ask what it expects in return. Rule 2, keep one lamp that remembers your laugh. He grinned at that, small but real. Rule 3, when you leave a mouthful in a glass, make it for thirst, not fear. He nodded, trying the words under his breath like a spell that might belong to him. Rule 4, I said, if someone counts, don't join in until you know what they're measuring. He looked up. How many rules will there be? As many as keep you human, I said. Rain softened to a hush outside. The window glowed faintly. Its reflection showed both of us in the same time, same breath. No lag. A good sign. I poured his tea and set it before him. He left a mouthful without being told. You learn fast, I said. He shrugged. You sound like my mom when she's not sure I'm listening. That means it's working, I said. We ate bread with honey and talked about small things. Bus routes, school, a cat that sleeps near the vending machines. Normal tried on its jacket again and found it still fit. When he was ready to leave, I wrapped the paper charm in a napkin and placed it in his pocket. Throw it into a garden, I said. Not trash. Gardens know what to do with forgotten things. Will it grow? Maybe, I said. Maybe it'll learn to be a fence instead of a door. He nodded, serious. And if the house calls again? Tell it you're busy, I said. Tell it daylight pays better. He laughed then, honest and young. It sounded like the house closing a window for the night. After he left, I stood at the window and watched him walk down the street, shoulders square, charm safe. The streetlight blinked once and stayed on. No patterns, no counting. The city moved around him, people, cars, the easy hum of things that don't need ghosts to run. When he turned the corner, I whispered, "Be kind, not obedient." The air agreed. That night, I dreamed of a garden behind the house. Fences made of light, not wood. Every old mask hung there like a seed husk, open and empty. Children's laughter drifted through the rows. Dorian sat on the porch, no mask, hands in soil. May poured water from a kettle that steamed like early spring. They looked up as I passed but didn't speak. We had said enough. At the garden's edge stood the boy, holding a paper charm that had turned green with new leaves. He smiled and tucked it into the earth. When he stepped back, a small reed sprouted, 2 circles and a long oval swaying in the wind. The shape of breathing. I woke with sunlight on my face. Real sunlight. No borrowed rhythm. The apartment felt lighter, like a book with the last page written. I made tea, left a mouthful because old habits are respectful, not fearful. The radio caught a morning song about weather and wheat, the kind of music that makes no promises, The drawer stayed closed. The mirror reflected without questions. On my way out, I touched the ribbon at my wrist and smiled. "Keep your lights honest," I told the room. The pipes answered with one small sigh. Enough. In the hallway, a new tenant was moving in, an older woman with plants in both hands. She smiled at me. "You're the one who keeps the lights on, right?" "I try," I said. As she passed, one leaf brushed my wrist and left a faint mark, 2 circles and a long oval, pale as morning dew. It faded before I reached the stairs. Some echoes, it seems, learn how to grow quietly. If you made it through all 12 parts, tell me, which rule would you keep for yourself? And tonight, leave one light on, not for fear, but for company.